Brian's pushing people to the limit.
Hillsong culture is loyalty to Hillsong.
See, that's the issue. That right there is an issue. Like a culture of a church being loyal to a brand rather than the church and Jesus. That's where these issues begin, where you capitalize and make church a capitalist organization. The new Carl Lentz documentary is really, really interesting because it gives us some insight into what can happen when a pastor blows up like a celebrity and gets really famous really quickly. And it also shows us what can happen with there being different power structures and dynamics within church. And I think what it does when I watched this and when I was listening to some of the words that were being said and things like that, it made me begin to ask questions of what should church be? Should church be like this? Should pastors be in such big positions? Not necessarily because it's wrong, but more so to protect them. And so I want to think through this, and I want to talk through why we should be weary and careful of giving pastors so much power, so much influence, and the negative results of that can happen. Because the documentary is on Hulu, I can't really show any clips from it, but I can show you the trailer, and this is the trailer to The Secrets of Hillsong, and this really highlights kind of the scandal that's been kind of brewing for the last few years, and it's sad. Sad that this is, I guess, entertainment in some ways at the expense of people getting hurt in the name of Christianity and Jesus. So, but anyways, let's check this out.
The truth doesn't go anywhere just because you cover it up.
I don't like you, but I love you.
Hillsong is a megachurch, and Carl Lentz is the celebrity pastor.
Carl is so charming.
People idolized him.
There is a sense that pastors can be hot.
He was so special.
It was cool.
Carl was this mega superstar, and then he just disappeared.
You do not want to be in this chair. I cannot stress it enough.
You really got a hold on me.
I had some major lies.
He said I have been unfaithful.
Carl was fired by Hillsong leader Brian Houston, but there was something larger happening at this church.
People were putting things together. Brian's unraveling was bound to happen.
They were protecting something. What are they protecting? Brian's pushing people to the limit.
Hillsong culture is loyalty to Hillsong.
See, that's the issue. That right there is an issue. Like a culture of a church being loyal to a brand rather than the church and Jesus. That's where these issues begin, where you capitalize and make church a capitalist organization.
There was a series of violent criminal acts against children.
Did you cover up your father's sex abuse?
They had meetings about not telling anyone.
It's child abuse, labor abuse, sexual assault.
We are fearful of what is ahead.
I've never seen anything like this.
This is a church we're talking about.
Honestly, really insane that all this is going on. Watching this documentary was really interesting to me because when I was watching it, it made me think back to actually when I was in New York City and I visited Hillsong twice. And both times I saw Carl Lentz preach. Really compelling guy, really exciting, really passionate. And you could see why people, followed him and wanted to be a part of his church. And the documentary kind of lays that out, that he's this very charismatic figure that people are just drawn to. But the questions that kind of came to my mind as I was watching this one, not just questions, but emotions. As someone who works in church, it made me sad to think about, the pain that his family's gone through, the pain that he's gone through, the pain that people that were so passionate about going to church and volunteering and being part of this movement that they thought was, really pure, I guess. And it ended up kind of blowing up in their faces a little bit. And so, I think of 3 questions when these kind of things happen. Is like, what is wrong with the concept of Hillsong? Are pastors actually being put in danger for their own emotional well-being and their own mental health in these kind of mega churches and given that much power? And then the other question is like, what should church even be? Should church even be this? So like when you look at Hillsong as this global church that this main leader, Brian Houston, is leading, has led for a long time, and it's just growing. And it's very, very capitalist. I mean, like the music brings in tons of money, which has allowed them to do conferences, which has allowed them to like put speakers on platforms and grow their brand. So when you look at Hillsong, it's not just a church. It's a very big business that promotes a product of Christianity, and in the name of Jesus, they make a lot of money. And I'm sure that many lives have been changed positively. But when you look at it, it's very, very Western. Even though it's in Australia, it's technically not in the West, but it's a very, very like interesting thing because it's all about brand. It's all about money. It's all about platform. It's all about a certain type of culture. And one of the things they mentioned in that trailer is Hillsong is when you're working there or serving there, you're called to be loyal to that name, Hillsong, loyal to Brian Houston. If you watch this documentary, what you'll find is Carl Lentz, he had to be loyal to a point of that it seemed like it was putting him in danger. I think there's one point in the documentary where he mentions how he's preaching like 7 times a day, and he goes to Brian Houston and he's like, hey, I need a break. And then Brian Houston's like, well, when I was at your age, I was preaching 11 times a day. And so the second question that I just kind of mentioned was like, are pastors in these situations actually being put into danger when they're being asked to work this much, do this much preaching, do this much leading, and balance all these things while also having a family, while also being a father, while also being a husband, while also living a normal life? Like it becomes a point where it seems like the men that get put in these positions of power are suffocated by the power that they're given. And in my opinion, I mean, I wouldn't be shocked if sometimes some of these guys self-sabotage just to get out, because it's hard for them to just quit. I mean, you're the main guy, you're the leader, you're the one that everyone is looking to. And if you just quit, then it causes all kinds of problems. And with Hillsong, it's like millions and millions of dollars. And so I think that pastors that are in these churches, I feel sorry for them sometimes. I mean, I get that they're like, they have a lot of influence and things like that, but wow, the pressure that they're having to hold on to and the pressure that they're having to balance and maintain, and the like, they have to like put on a front a lot of times probably. Like if you have a bad day, you can't really bring that into the church. Like you got to keep being that guy. And so like when you look at like Hillsong and the structure that is Hillsong and mega churches in general, and then the pastors that lead those churches, what they're being asked to do is not healthy. It's not safe. It's not something that I would want to ever do. And then the last question that I think about with all of this is like, what should church be? Should church be this event? Should church be this big thing that people come to? Should church be something that really is just community rather than a kind of one God-driven show? And you see that with Carl Lentz. When I think about the early church, and I think about the community that they had and the family that they had, it wasn't centered around one person. I mean, it was, but it was centered around Christ, centered around Jesus. And it's a very sad thing to see the results of what we've allowed church to become in some ways, where people get hurt, where pastors are not really pastors. They're motivational speakers that are leading big groups of people. They're entertainers that also serve as like, spiritual guidance in some ways. And church is no longer this place where people are able to like walk on their journey of faith following Jesus together. It's more of you show up to an event, you get involved, you volunteer, and then you can get into the whole conversation of whether or not like is it like kind of manipulative how they get people to volunteer such long hours without pay in the name of like, oh well, you're serving the church, so you should do it, you're serving Jesus. So as I watched this documentary, I was saddened because, I mean, I remember going to Hillsong and seeing Carl Lentz and being intrigued by it. And actually, I liked listening to him. I'm a little in a different place nowadays. It's not really my style of church anymore. But, like, it's just an interesting thing to see, but it's very sad to see someone get really torn apart. And I think we should always be asking these questions, like, is these concepts necessary? Are these concepts of church necessary? Like this big branding, capitalizing, capitalist, making money off of the church. Are we putting these pastors in danger? I think that we definitely are. I don't think that I don't think you can balance all that. I just don't think it's possible for one man to do that. And then what should church be? What should church be? Those are the questions that, as I watched this, I was really struggling with what I was seeing. I'd love to hear from you. I'd love to see what your thoughts are. Leave those thoughts in the comments. If Rethinking Christianity is helpful for you, hit the subscribe button, share it with somebody. This is a really interesting documentary series. I think there's 2 more episodes coming out. So if you've watched it so far, give some thoughts in the comments below. Until next time, I am Blake, and this is Rethinking Christianity. Thank you for tuning in.